Hi everyone, my name is Eli Hansen, and I'm going to explain what JavaScript local storage is and how it works. So, you may have had an experience where you were filling out a form or application online, and then all of a sudden your browser crashes, or you accidentally click the X on the top of the tab, and you close out of the browser. You end up losing all the form data you were filling out for the last 30, 40, or maybe even 50 minutes, which is not a very pleasant experience. Now, if you haven't had this experience, hopefully you never will, thanks to local storage. Local storage is a useful tool that can help to avoid these types of situations, and others like it by storing small amounts of data in the browser. Local storage is a property that allows us to save key value pairs in a web browser and retrieve the data when needed. The data is stored persistently, so if you close your browser, the data is still there and can be used later on. Local storage is a window object property, so we can use it to interact with and manipulate the browser window. It can also be used with other window properties and methods. The space available for local storage is about 5 megabytes, so it isn't suitable for large amounts of data, and it's accessible to anyone who uses the device, so it shouldn't be used to store sensitive information like passwords or credit card numbers. It can be used to store form data so that it won't be lost, or if you need to save the form data so you can go back to it later and continue filling it out. It can also be used to store language preferences or themes. It can be used to cache data that's used frequently, and this can help speed up retrieval times rather than having to get the data from the backend server every time. And it can also be used to keep you logged in even after closing and reopening the browser. So it has a lot of useful purposes we can use it for. The Web Storage API has two storage mechanisms. So one is the local storage, which is what we're talking about, and the other is session storage. These are both a little bit different. So we won't spend too much time talking about session storage here, but here's a comparison to show the differences between local storage, session storage, and cookies. Basically, session storage is not persistent, meaning when you close your browser or session, the data you stored in session storage, won't be there when you reopen the browser, whereas with local storage, it does persist. So how is it that local storage then is different from a cookie, right? Sometimes people get those confused. Not a snickerdoodle, but of course, we're talking about a browser cookie. Well, local storage is more secure than storing with cookies, and also cookies are more about tracking and storing user interactions with the website, your preferences, and session details, whereas local storage uses JavaScript to store information that affects the functionality and the user experience of the website. Cookies are also limited to 4 kilobytes of storage space, and they're sent with every HTTP request, whereas local storage usually has about 5 megabytes of storage space and is not sent with every HTTP request. So we can think of cookies maybe kind of as like a stamped loyalty card. They contain information about your interactions with the website, your preferences and session details, just like a stamped loyalty card helps track your visits to the cookie shop. Cookies help websites remember your previous interactions. Session storage is like using a whiteboard or a notepad to jot down some temporary notes during a meeting that you don't need afterward. So like I mentioned, it's not persistent, meaning once you close the browser, whatever you had in session storage is gone. Local storage, on the other hand, is kind of like a personal journal or a file cabinet. It's persistent, as I mentioned previously, and the data you store there remains even after you close the browser or tab. Just as a journal retains your thoughts over time, it doesn't erase itself. Local storage retains data for the long term. Alright, so how does it work, or how do we use it? Let's go ahead and take a look and look at a couple examples as well. Alright, so we talked about what local storage is and some purposes that it can be used for. So let's talk now about the syntax and how to actually implement it. So in order to do that, we can use window.localStorage or just local storage. To save data to local storage, we use the localStorage.setItem, and then we pick our key and our value pair, and we've set this for local storage. if we want to retrieve the data in local storage, we can set it to a variable, in this case last name, and then equals local storage. And then in this case, we use the .get item, and we use the key that we want to get the value from, or the value for, and enter our key. And then this will retrieve the value. And in this case, we can use localStorage.remove item to remove from local storage using the key. And if we want to clear everything from local storage, we can use the localStorage.clear with parentheses function. All right, and then I mentioned that local storage needs to be stored as a string. And so in order to, if we have an array, we need to be able to convert it to JSON. So in this case, we've created this array, the key, Grogu, and the value, of course, 2. And then we set the local storage. In this case, we save the data, user, and then JSON.stringify to convert or serialize this array. And then we can use the constant user data equals the JSON and parse the data using localStorage.get item again, and our key, in this case user. And then of course we can print out to the console what we're seeing. Alright, so if we were to go to the console for just any page, let's just do Google at home to show this example. So we could run that, whoops, let's move this over a little bit. So we could run that the local storage commands from our JSON and see what happens. So of course, if we hit enter, we're going to see this information for Grogu, this array, Grogu, excuse me, and then 2. And if we do local storage in the console here, we can see that information. So Grogu saved as the key value pair user, and then it shows our information. Now if we run the local storage, oops, if I can type .clear command, we will see then what happens. So once we clear it out of storage, it's undefined because there's no longer anything stored there. So this is just a demonstration. Let me show you another example. Alright, and so here's some code. This uses local storage to save the last visited page, so wherever you've been visiting, and of course it uses the window location. So you can see localStorage.set item, we set it to last visited page, and then we retrieve that specific page. So in this case, if we go and change, let's just change this to byui.edu, and let's run this. Alright, and then if we do local storage, last visited page, of course, is our Chrome new tab page. But if we go to BYUI and we run that same code, then we can run local storage dot get item, and then do last visited, oops, if I can spell, page. And we can see that the last visit page is the byui.i.edu. Now if we run that local storage .clear .this, we're going to see it goes to undefined. And then if we run get the last page, again we have no, it's null. So because we cleared it out. So that's just a demonstration again of the local storage. There's one last example that I think illustrates it even better and actually shows. So let's take a look at that. All right, so those docs, shoot, what's it called? the MDN docs has actually this web storage and event output examples that demonstrate this. Again, just one more example just to kind of help solidify everything. So in this example, we're using, or they're using the web storage API and local storage. And right here we've got the Firefox image. We can change the font. So if we go here and we change the color to this blue color, and let's say we change this to the tortoise, then we can go over to and we can actually do local storage, and we can see that the background color, BG color, is saved. And of course, then the image, let me move this over just a little bit, tortoise, and the type of font. Alright, so if we go over to here, we can also see that it logged here. And so the old value was Firefox, PNG, the key was image, and the new value is the tortoise, the URL such and such, and then we can see the storage area here's the information that was stored in local storage. So just kind of a nice example. That's local storage in a nutshell. Sorry, one last thing. So let's just show this example. So if I go ahead and close out and then open back up that web page, see, it was red for a split second, but we saw it change to the color that was last saved.